my friends, it's Leah with your Winning Wednesday, WINSDAY, coming to you on a gorgeous Wednesday afternoon. I hope you're having a wonderfully winning day and a fabulously winning week. We've had a great week. We've had a lot of fun with some friends that were here over the last weekend, and I do want to give a shout out to my sister-in-law today, because today is her birthday. Happy birthday, Phyllis. I don't know if you'll see this or maybe you'll see the replay or whatever, but happy birthday. Love you. Today we're going to be looking at a different passage. We're going to go into the Old Testament and we're going to look at a chapter out of Isaiah that may be familiar to some of you. It may not be familiar, but we're going to look at it, and we may take a couple of weeks to give it a really good, deep look. So we're going to look at Isaiah chapter 40. Now, some of this may be familiar to us, but some of it may not. So let's start by just reading the chapter together, and then we'll talk about it. So Isaiah chapter 40, and of course, I'm on the wrong page. It says this, and I'm reading out of the New King James Version today. It says, "Comfort, yes, comfort my people, says your God. Speak comfort to Jerusalem and cry out to her that her warfare is ended, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill brought low. The crooked places shall be made straight, and the rough places smooth. The glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken." Verse 6 says, "The voice said, 'Cry out.' And he said, 'What shall I cry?' All flesh is grass, and all its loveliness is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, because the breath of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever." Verse 9, "O Zion, you who bring good tidings, get up into the high mountain. O Jerusalem, you who bring good tidings, lift up your voice with strength. Lift it up, be not afraid. Say to the cities of Judah, behold your God. Behold, the Lord God shall come with a strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs with his arm, and carry them in his bosom, and gently lead those who are with young. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, measured heaven with a span, and calculated the dust of the earth in a measure, weighed the mountains in scales, and the hills in a balance?" Verse 13, "Who has directed the Spirit of the Lord, or as his counselor has taught him?" Verse 14, "With whom did he take counsel, and who instructed him, and taught him in the path of justice? Who taught him knowledge, and showed him the way of understanding? Behold, the nations are as a drop in a bucket, and are counted in the small dust on the scales. Look, he lifts up the isles as a very little thing. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor its beasts sufficient for a burnt offering. All nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted by him less than nothing and worthless. To whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness will you compare to him? The workman molds an image. The goldsmith overspreads it with gold, and the silversmith casts silver chains. Whoever is too impoverished for such a contribution chooses a tree that will rot. He seeks for himself, I'm sorry, I still read that wrong. Let's start with verse 20 again. Whoever is too impoverished for such a contribution chooses a tree that will not rot. He seeks for himself a skillful workman to prepare a carved image that will not totter. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain, and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. He brings the princes to nothing. He makes the judges of the earth useless. Scarcely shall they be planted, scarcely shall they be sown, scarcely shall their stalk take root in the earth. When he will also blow on them, and they will wither, and the whirlwind will take them away like stubble. Verse 25. To whom then will you liken me? Or to whom shall I be equal? Says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high and see who has created these things, who brings out their host by number. He calls them all by name. By the greatness of his might and the strength of his power, not one is missing. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my just claim is passed over by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, never faints, neither faints nor is weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, he increases strength. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. That's a lot of reading, but it's really important for us to read the whole thing so we can get that full context. So let's look at what this is telling us. As we look at this, as you just begin reading and thinking about it, God desires to bring a comforting word, his comforting compassion and peace and rest to his people, because his people had been in captivity. And his righteousness, of course, requires that sins be atoned for. And so he was telling them, he says, I comfort my people. And his people had received a double portion of punishment. And that's what the very first part of this tells us, that was in verse 2. He says to speak comfort to Jerusalem and cry out to her that her warfare is ended, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. So he said, I have atoned for your sins here. It's referring to what had already happened, but it's also referring to what will happen upon Jesus' advent. And, because it goes back to, it talks of John the Baptist, who is the voice crying in the wilderness, and then it brings us forward. And then it's talking about the first advent of Christ when he came as a baby. And then it's also talking about his second advent when he comes back as the warrior king. So verses 3-5 then is what talks about John the Baptist. And whenever I read that, I'm sure that probably you thought, I've heard this before, the voice of one crying in the wilderness. And we can see that in the New Testament, in the Gospels. So it's talking about John the Baptist preparing the way of the Lord and the first advent of Jesus Christ. When the glory of the Lord was revealed at Jesus' birth, see, it says, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill brought low. The crooked places be made straight, and the rough places smooth. The glory of the Lord shall be revealed. Okay, so that's when Jesus came at his first advent. The glory of the Lord was revealed to humanity, and that reconciliation would take place through him. But then the next line where it says, and all flesh shall see it together, is alluding to his second advent, when everyone is going to see him. Every eye will see, every knee shall bow, and every voice will confess that Jesus Christ is indeed Lord, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. And so it's telling us about both times that Jesus is going to come to the earth. So his first advent when he came as a baby to bring salvation, and his second advent when he comes to conquer for the final time his enemy, who is Satan. So it's talking about all of that. And so all flesh shall see him and see him in his glory at that time. So beginning at verse 6, in the second part of verse 6, I called it 6b, we read of God's word and humanity's weakness. So it says, the voice said, cry out. And he said, what shall I cry? And then it says, all flesh is grass, and all its loveliness is like the flower of the field. The grass withers and the flower fades, because the breath of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever. So the word of our God is strength and provision and protection. And humanity's weakness is the revelation that people are needy. We need God. We just need him. We need him in every way. We need him in every circumstance. We need God to answer everything that we face. We need his provision. We need his protection, and we need his strength. And so God is sovereign and omnipotent. And it talks about this. He is over all the things that he created. His people, his flock. And I love this. Every time I read this verse, it makes me think of a song that we sang with our daughter when she was little. He will feed his flock, verse 11. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arm and carry them in his bosom and gently lead those who are with young. And so it's saying that God is, and of course, this alludes to Jesus also. He is the good shepherd. He's the one who leads his flock like a shepherd. And he gathers us up. He gathers the lambs in his arms, and he takes care of us. He provides for us. He feeds us. He waters us. He cares for us. He binds up our wounds. He does all of those things. He anoints us for whatever it desires for us to do. So he leads us like a flock. So he is sovereign and omnipotent over all the things that he created, his people, his flock, his earthly creation. And then it names all the things. He talks about it, the water, that God holds it all in his hand. He holds water in his hand. The heavens, the vastness of the heavens are measured by God's hand. Think about the fact of the reality of how big, how massive, how omnipotent God truly is, because he did all of these things. He holds the water. I mean, think about all the water on the earth. God holds that in the palm of his hand. He measured out the vastness of the heaven by his hand. The dust, the clay, the earth, God calculated it with a measuring spoon. Think about that. I thought about cooking, and you get out I need a half a cup of this. I need 1 cup of this, a fourth of a cup of this, a third of a cup of this. And I think God measured out the dirt. He's like, oh, I'll take a measure of that and dump it over here. And he did the same thing with the mountains. It says that God weighed them on a scale. He said, oh, this mountain, is this one big enough? Yes, let's use that one. And the hills, he measured them in a balance. Let's compare these. Okay, let's do it like this. And so it's just talking about the fact that God created all of these things, and we cannot truly fathom all of it. We can't really comprehend everything that God truly is. And so he's created all of these things, and he cares for all of his creation. He is omniscient. So he knows everything. God possesses all knowledge, all wisdom, all understanding. And the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that we possess is only because God allows us to have a measure of his knowledge, a measure of his wisdom, a measure of his understanding. There's no way that we can comprehend all that God knows and all that he is, because he is omnipotent and omniscient. He is all strength, and he is all powerful. He is all knowing, and he is everywhere all the time, because God is spirit. So in his omniscience, nobody can counsel him, because God has all knowledge. God is justice, he is knowledge, and he is wisdom. He is all of those things, and he's perfect in it all. He is holy and perfect. So everything is empty and meaningless and nothingness without God's presence. The Hebrew word that's used here is tohu, and it's also used in Genesis. And the word means it's without form. You know, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void. So without form and void is talking about that it was just nothingness. It was without form. It was without value. And so what God does with this tohu, this valueless or worthless thing, he brings order out of chaos. That's what God did in the beginning, and that is what he does in us. He brings order from the chaos of our lives. He brings order from the sin and chaos that we have. So everything is empty and nothingness without God. God cannot be compared to any other God, any idol, any icon. God cannot be compared to anything because what these idols are constructed from, God created in the first place. And it always makes me think about this old joke about these scientists that said, hey, we figured out how to bring life out of dirt and all of this stuff. And so they tell God, we've figured it all out and all of that. And they said, we've learned how to make life out of dirt. And so we're going to show you. And God says, no, you go get your own dirt. And so then they're at a loss again because they don't know how to make dirt. So God brings order from chaos, and God has all knowledge, and God has all power. And what knowledge we have and what power we have is only because God gives that to us. So in verse 21, then, he gives a challenge to our human knowledge. So here's what it says. Let me flip over there. Verse 21. It says, have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? So this is a challenge to human knowledge. He says, have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? So people have known God or known of God since the beginning of humanity. So how do we know this? Because we go back to Genesis again. God walked with Adam and Eve in the garden. Remember, it says that he walked with them in the cool of the day, in the cool of the evening. And so they talked with God face to face. Adam and Eve had a face-to-face communication with God. Can you even imagine? I mean, that is so far beyond my ability to truly comprehend. They had face-to-face conversations with God. What a marvel that would be. But there they were, because God had created this perfect place and he created these perfect people. But guess what? They messed it up. And so when they sinned, they talked with God face to face, and then that sin in their lives separated them from that face to face communion, from that face to face presence of God from them. And that is why we all have to be reconciled to God through Jesus Christ, because we lost that ability to talk with him face to face because sin separates us from God. So in verse 22, then, it's talking about God's dwelling place. It is outside this realm that we see. It says, it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. So that's the saying, God is out there so far that we look like grasshoppers. Have you ever been on an airplane and you look down and you can kind of see the cars or things going by, as you're lifting up and you're heading up to that about 5 mile mark in the air. But as you go up, you can look down and things get smaller and smaller and smaller the higher up you go. And it looks like they're just little ants crawling on the ground. And it's really these big semis, but it doesn't look like that anymore because you're so far up. And that Isaiah is saying that's what we look like to God because he's so far above where we are. And then it says that, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. So the circle of the earth is translated from a Hebrew word. It's chug. And I don't know if I can actually pronounce that the way you're supposed to say it, but I tried. So, and it just reveals that the earth is round. That's what that word is talking about. It's talking about the roundness of the earth. So we know that the earth is not flat. It is round. And so that's what that Hebrew word is talking about. And it says that he stretches out the heavens, and he is speaking of the firmament above, which God spread out over our heads. So he's saying he just took his hand and he spread it out like this. So it's like a curtain or a tent under which we dwell. As humans, we dwell under there. And so this word curtain, it comes from another Hebrew word, which is dolk, which is something crumbling and fine like a thin cloth, possibly referring to the atmosphere, which is of the perfect density to sustain life. And I want you to think about this. Think about the perfection of the atmosphere in which we dwell. This curtain that God placed over the earth, this atmosphere that God laid out there, it is so perfectly dialed in that it sustains life. No other planet has that except ours, because God created it for us to dwell on. So the atmosphere is of the perfect density to sustain life. It's thick enough to shield us, that ozone layer. It shields us from the harmful rays of the sun, but it's thin enough to it's like a veil that allows the beneficial rays to come through and benefit us. So those rays pass through. He protects us from excessive heat. He protects us from excessive cold. It shields us from meteors and other space debris that could come into our atmosphere. It when you think about all the dust particles and the reflection from the sun that brings the weather patterns that we have, it brings the light, it brings the rain, it brings the snow, all the things that we need to sustain life. This curtain is that thing that sustains our lives. And I just think it's amazing that Isaiah, however many thousands of years ago, about 3,000 years ago, wrote this out for us, a little bit more than 3,000 years ago. So then in verses 23 and 24, God places and deposes leaders and rulers. So he's talking about those who are in opposition. So verses 23 and 24 says, he brings princes to nothing. He makes the judges of the earth useless. Scarcely shall they be planted, scarcely shall they be sown, scarcely shall their stalk take root in the earth, when he will also blow on them, and they will wither, and the whirlwind will take them away like stubble. So God places and deposes leaders and rulers. Those in opposition to his divine plan are not a hindrance to God. God accomplishes whatever he's going to do. People have the opportunity to accept him or reject him. And even if they reject him, there's still no real hindrance to God. He just deposes them. He removes them when they reject his plan, and those who reject God will not continue to prosper, and their posterity will be brought low and brought to an end. God promises that. And what he tells us is that their names, their families will be brought down to stubble. They're going to be brought to nothing because they're in opposition to God and who he is. And so Isaiah is describing for us what God will do with those who reject him. So as I said in the earlier part of this is talking about the first advent of Christ, but it's also revealing to us what that second advent is going to look like, because God is going to bring down all those who reject him through the salvation that he brought to us through Jesus Christ. So in verses 25 and 26, again, God's sovereignty is revealed. So 25 and 26 says this, to whom then will you liken me? There is no comparison to God. To whom then will you liken me? Or to whom shall I be equal, says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high and see who has created these things, who brings out their host by number. He calls them all by name. By the greatness of his might and the strength of his power, no one is missing. So there is no comparison to God. God has no equal. There is nothing, nor there is no thing, nor power, nor other God of anywhere that compares to him, because everything that we know is created by him. It's incredible to me that people could possibly think that anything could even compare to who he is. Our God is awesome. There is no comparison. He has no equal. He is the creator, and he named all the stars. He named them all. He does not lose or misplace anything. I love that. Not one is missing. He didn't lose anything. He's not going to lose anything. He doesn't misplace things like me. who can't find my phone half the time, or I can't find my keys or whatever. I'm always going around going, Mike, do you know what I did with this, that, or the other? Because I'll be walking around, and you know how you just do things mindlessly. You just set something down and you think, what did I do with that? What was I doing when I set that down? Because we just go about our day and then we think, oh my word, what was I doing when I set this down? Where was I? I set a cup down. Did I put it on the mantle, on the fireplace? Did I set it on the table? What did I do with it? So you walk around looking for it. God is not like that. God is perfect and he is holy. He knows exactly what he has done with everything that he has created. So we never have to worry about being misplaced. God doesn't forget about us. He never forgets about us. And I'm so thankful for that. The heavens themselves declare the truth and proof of God's existence and of his perfection. They reveal and demonstrate the greatness of God's power. All you have to do is look. All you have to do is look out there and see the beauty of everything that God is. So in verses 27 through 31, this is the most, probably the most common passage that is read from this. So I want to read it one more time. It says, "Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel? My way is hidden from the Lord, and my just claim is passed over by my God. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, he increases strength. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fail. But those who wait on the Lord, shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." So God is Elohim. That is the everlasting triune God, because Elohim is the plural for the word God. It's the plural. So that means that alludes to that triune God, the Father, Son, and Spirit. God is Lord, Jehovah, the eternal one. He is the creator, and nothing can exhaust him. Nothing can exhaust his power, and nothing can cause him to faint. He never grows weary. He never gets tired. What a pleasure that would be, to never be tired. God never wearies from working on the behalf of those who love him and submit and surrender to him. He never gets tired of working on our behalf. Isn't that a glorious thought? To think God never gets tired of helping me. He never wearies of me coming to him and saying, God, please renew me. Please recharge me. Please restore me. He never wearies of that, because he knows I'm his creation and he loves me. And he's going to lead me like a flock. He's going to lead me like the sheep of his pasture. And he's going to say, oh, you need a drink here. Here's the still water that you long for. You need something to eat. Here's this beautiful green pasture. Let me just wrap my arms around you because you need some love. God never wearies of doing that for us. What a beautiful picture this is for us. God never wearies from working on behalf of those who love him and submit and surrender to him. Remember, you can submit without surrender, but God wants your surrender. He wants you to surrender to him. God hurts. The only time that he gets weary is when we continue to walk in sin. And he's like, I can't help you when you are separating yourself from me. He longs for a relationship with us. He hurts because he loves us. And our sin and our rebellion against him, his word and his will, that's what wearies him. That's what causes him to be sad. God empowers those who are weak, for we are in need of his strength. He empowers us through his own strength when we surrender to him and say, God, I need you. Please help me. So this word in verse 31, those who wait on the Lord. This is one of my favorite things. I learned this many years ago. But those who wait on the Lord, the word there is kavah, and it means to bind together by twisting. That means we wrap ourselves around him like a vine. Remember, he says, I am the vine, you are the branches. So he is that root, and he's that vine that grows up, and then we're those branches, like a honeysuckle vine or something like that. Think about a morning glory or something beautiful like that, that wraps itself around that main vine. It wraps itself around it to draw life from it. And that's what we are. It says, those who wait on the Lord, those who bind themselves to the Lord, those who wrap themselves up in him. Wrap yourselves around him. That's what it says. Those who wait on him. We twist ourselves around him. We expect. We're in expectation of whatever God is going to do. We gather together with him. We gather around him, and we look patiently for what he is going to do in our lives. We need to work on our patience sometimes, but we have to wait until it's his timing. We wait for him, and we wait upon him. That's what that means. We're just gathering around him, and we're waiting to see what he's going to do. We're just drawing our life from him. Those who wait on the Lord shall do this. They shall renew their strength. And that's another Hebrew word, and it means to sprout up, to change, to alter, to go forward, and to grow up, to renew ourselves, to sprint is what it also means, to strike through. It means you're going to gather that new strength, and you're going to jump up, and you're going to move forward and proceed forward to do what God is calling you to do. It says we will mount up with wings like eagles. That doesn't mean he's going to make us all young again. That's not what that says. He says, I'm going to renew your strength as if you were young. I'm going to give you strength and ability to do what you need to do. I'm going to give you the ability that to do that thing that I am calling you to do. God's not going to call you to do something and then not give you the ability to do it. He says, if you will bind yourself to me, I'm going to give you the strength that you need to carry out my will and purpose for your life. What good news that is. So we will mount up with wings like eagle. That means we're going to soar in that renewed strength that he places within his people. What a beautiful chapter this is for us. So I encourage you, go to your Bible and get a Bible and just sit down and read Isaiah chapter 40 and just say, God, what a God of comfort you are. And boy, what a thing that we needed this week in the United States with all the things that have happened, people that have been murdered and assassinated, and a lot of other things. Some of us being assassinated through our character. People are doing character assassination and all of those things because they don't like what you think. They don't like what you believe. They don't like the fact that you believe in a God who does all of these things. But let me tell you something, friends. Jesus said, remember, they hated me first. And the world is not going to love us even more and more every day, because the world does not like the message of the truth, because the truth offends. And when you're telling the truth, people don't want to hear the truth. So let's remember that God is the God of all comfort, and he will, as we wrap ourselves around him, he is going to lead us like a shepherd, and he is going to give us renewed strength and ability and knowledge and wisdom and understanding, all the things that we need to carry out what he has for us. And I have gone way over my time today, but I couldn't stop. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's good to have all of you guys with us today. Yes, our God is indeed an awesome God. He is beyond our ability to even imagine who he is and what he is and all that he has. And he has so much in store for us that's why he just takes us one step at a time. So let me end today just by saying, thank you for being here. And please take the time to read this for yourself. Take your time to read it and absorb what he's saying to us through this passage Isaiah chapter 40, and get your strength renewed through him. Let me end today by inviting you to join us on Sunday. Let me invite you to join us tonight. Tonight at 6 o'clock, we have children and youth programs, and we also are beginning our new women's Bible study this evening. So that's at 6 o'clock. We meet at 1000 Emerald Street in Wellington, Texas. So if you are in the Wellington area, we invite you to join us for all of these things: children's program, youth program, and women's Bible study. 1000 Emerald Street in Wellington, Texas. And then we meet on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock for Sunday School and Discipleship, and then at 11 o'clock for our worship service. We do live stream our worship service right here on this page, so you can join us on the live stream if you are not in the Wellington area. But if you are in Wellington, I would encourage you to get out and join people of like mind. And maybe you don't know anything about the Church of the Nazarene, and you're like, I don't know anything about you Nazarenes. Let me invite you to join us and find out what we're all about. 1000 Emerald Street in Wellington, Texas. We'd love to meet you in person and for you to join us. And again, our services are at 10 o'clock, Sunday School and Discipleship, and that is immediately followed by our worship service at 11 o'clock. And again, we do live stream right here on this page. So if you are not in the Wellington area, we would love for you to join us online. But if you are, please join us in person, because we'd love to see you there. So have a wonderfully winning day, a fabulously winning week. Read Isaiah 40 for yourself and be renewed in the strength of the Lord. See you next time.